Austin, what's up, my man? Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Cautious Coffee, brought to you by Austin, Staten, DeRae Crane.
And the
Coming
Brewed
at
Insights newsletter.
Oh, yes, our newsletter is rolling, which is so good for not just us, Austin, but others. Because what are we, 201 followers? Oh, maybe not.
Yeah. We just hit 201 followers on LinkedIn this past week. So, we're incredibly excited about that. We're growing, look at the
Slow and
30,
steady.
look at the 30-day analytics right now. And I'm seeing, search appearances up 107%, unique visitors up 30%, new
Got to be the
followers up
newsletter.
22%, post impressions up 220%. So, I mean, those are good numbers. We put out 6 issues of the newsletter. So these numbers are, post newsletter 3 and on. So I'm encouraged by that.
Yeah, I'm thinking 26 newsletters this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, 20 episodes, 26 newsletters.
Maybe more. I mean, it doesn't hurt to write more. That's why we call it weekly-ish.
For sure, but just to have, you know,
Goals in mind.
a goal,
Yeah.
right? Like, at a minimum, how about that? At a minimum, that's what I'm thinking. I hit that, then, we can think about a different number next year.
Yeah, of course, you got to take a summer vacation and, things like
Yeah.
that.
So speaking of the newsletter, our today's episode you know, is about one of those newsletters. I'm just getting it pulled up here so I can quickly reference it. Finding Your Voice. This one was a lot of fun for me to write.
Yeah. I thought it was good. It was a lot of fun to read. Kind of build out the newsletter around it as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought it was a solid read. So it was more on, your life depending on articulating your abilities.
But I mean that. I mean, like, the quality of your life, the relationships in your life, the things you achieve or don't achieve, like, it's all on you. Just taking ownership. No one else is in your way. It's only you in your way.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I speak with a lot of folks who are, in the communication space, and
Yes, you do.
whether it's kids that are in college reaching
Mhm.
out, asking about how they can get plugged in, or I also have kind of like a, I don't know, passion for helping people that are trying to find work. That sort of came in during 2020
Mm.
when, a lot of people are impacted by layoffs during COVID. I don't know why I got involved with it, but like IBC Houston, for example, I created like a job bank, and, I was flagging jobs to people. And, when a lot of us, left our employer in early 2021, it was the same type thing. And I've kind of felt that as an important thing. But one of the I don't know, common themes that I think comes up is people on their resume don't know how to brag about themselves, and they
Yeah.
don't give themselves enough credit for, the type of work they do. And, I spoke with someone a few weeks ago, and incredibly talented, has done a lot at their current role and in their previous career. But not all of that was necessarily reflected in the resume. And uh, I don't know, it just kind of goes to that mindset, like, especially in the communication space, like we're so accustomed to building stories around others,
Mhm.
and sharing narratives, but it's a lot more difficult to do it for yourself. And I think that's sometimes when it matters most.
Yeah, I could see it definitely being especially challenging for folks just getting started out. But I do
Yeah.
struggle when folks are like, they're veterans. They're veterans in the game, whatever field they're in, and they've been going at it a while and they've done some stuff, right? They've proven themselves time and time again, and even they still struggle. Or if they're making a pivot in career, which is kind of what this was. This newsletter was inspired by. Someone early on in my energy career asked me, what can I do?
Yeah.
And this is, here I am coming in, someone who's, led soldiers, took them to Afghanistan and brought them home, and developed hundreds of soldiers by that point, and dozens of them closely. And being asked that question, caught me off guard, but I found it, me being the weirdo that I am, I was inspired by it. So inspired that I wanted to write about it and share it with others. because I can't be the only one who gets asked that question in one way or another. You know, and I just want to impress upon folks, that it's your life, you've lived it, you should be able to talk about it. Um,
Yeah, and I will say this, I think it's important to document our wins, right?
Document
Um,
our wins, you said?
document our wins,
Yes,
because,
so important.
when we talk about bragging on ourselves, I know I just use in the context of, like, job resumes and things like that, but you think about it, say that you were at a career for 10 years, right?
Mhm,
Like, all right, I'll use my fiance as an example. So she's been at her company, consulting
yep,
company for quite some time, hasn't
mhm,
updated her resume since 2013, 2014.
right,
And so she, could probably sit down and extensively think, okay, what are the key wins that I've had over the last 10 years at this job? What clients have I worked with? What
mhm,
numbers have I put down? But it's going to take a while.
yeah,
Your memory starts fading after it's been 10 years. But if
right.
you can constantly document your wins, whether it's in your personal life, whether it's in your career, and it comes time to, say, okay, well, what have I done? You can look back at your journal and say, all right, I did this, this, and this. I think that helps build that, self-confidence. It removes some fear, some anxiety. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this.
You're not wrong at all. I would say even, what Neil deGrasse Tyson, when he's kind of asked what his process is, and he says, "I spend a lot of time writing." I've watched a couple of his presentations, one of them live in person when he was here in Houston, and he was like,
Yeah.
"I'm able to speak, so concisely because I spend a lot of time writing." And I think that's one of my tips, on the newsletter. So I'm also using the newsletter not just to share things, but to also help me with my writing, right? To force me to pick up the pen and start writing, so I can
Yeah.
share the things that I want to share and be able to speak to them in a concise manner, right? I not only want to share this with folks, I want to, 5 minutes. This is a 5 minute read. I don't want it to be a 20-minute read
Yeah.
or something that they have to struggle to read through. I want you to almost to be able to skim it, get the main points from it, get
Yeah.
some value out of it, because that's just on brand for us here at Cautious Coffee.
Yeah. And honestly, that's what I like about the newsletter too. Cause I have always felt that, since I was a little kid, and maybe this is just my mom boosting up my ego, but like, I always thought that I was a decent writer.
Mhm,
And, but I didn't necessarily like to write unless I was, in debate trying to write a case or something like that, or, papers, you have to do 20-page papers in school, and that's not really fun. But, you know, I, I I like this idea of taking a topic and making it 400 words, 500 words, and then
mhm.
breaking it down into bullet points too. And, it's something that we're writing how we would speak, how we would have conversations. And, I like how, for you, for example, you in this newsletter, you say, all right, here's some tips to get you started. And then you outline like 5 or 6 items. And it just makes it simple for people to consume. And it's, not written in a way that is pretentious or you know, braggadocious or anything like that. It's sharing your personal experience
Mhm.
in a way that, maybe someone can identify with. And that's the cool thing about the newsletter is, it forces us to write. And I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm having a ton of fun with it. And bullet points, I think I mentioned before, is like the military.
It's
You know,
easier to read.
as a commander, I don't want like this long drawn out narrative. I need like boom, boom, boom. I need to because I'm busy.
Yeah,
I'm moving.
you're not Charles Dickens, or Mark Twain. You're not getting paid by the word.
Yeah, like give me the bottom line up front. So that's what I try to do with the newsletter and how I write. It's like very bottom line up front, and mix in a little bit of story, and that's how my personal experience gets mixed in, and I was there, so I get to tell it. So it's relatively easy. And the self promotion piece, there's one thing to be like, if we think about it as a spectrum, you haven't done anything, but you're you're very braggadocious, or you're just, talking yourself up, so to speak. You're a charlatan. You fall into the charlatan category that I was talking about. Like, you talk a good game, but you can't deliver. Um, this is not this newsletter, this podcast, this episode isn't for those folks. This is for the folks that are out there getting after it. The rubber's meeting the road. Um, this is for them, right? This is for the folks that can speak to their story and they lived it and experienced it.
So let's go back real quick to that finding your voice. So one of the reasons why you wrote this newsletter was, and we maybe have touched on this. I think when we had Justin Cade on, the season one of the podcast, we maybe hinted at some of this, but the lead question that kind of inspired you to write was, "What can you do?"
Mhm.
So I want to know a little bit more about kind of the context of that conversation, and obviously it's something that has stuck with you for quite some time.
Yes.
Why was that so important for you?
So, and why I was taken aback, like, just given my experience and my background, and this person knowing that I was new to energy, that I was new to the trade floor. Um, so my skills, while I had some skills, some leadership skills mostly, which it's likely, actually I can just say it, I was a much better leader than this person, right? Um, just the technical piece was what that person wanted. And had this person taken the time to build the rapport with me, they would have chased that question with, what can I teach you? Because all the other attributes that you would want in a teammate, I have. So I couldn't, or at least at the time I didn't feel like I could come and say, well, all of it would be related to the military for the most part, right? Or any type of development for soldiers, younger soldiers. And at this point and place in my time, I'm with a bunch of energy professionals who've cut their teeth here on the trade floor. They can model. They have experience scheduling pipeline, trucks, trains. They know all the different commodities that are being traded on this floor. I don't know any of that. So me never having considered that question, I just was not ready to answer it in a way that would have translated for that person. And I think a lot of veterans will struggle with that.
Yeah.
Even the way we, initially, like in the early days, have our resumes, right? When we're getting ready to make the transition to the civilian sector, it civilians don't understand those things. They don't understand the different acronyms, the different positions, kind of the career cadence of, for myself, a military officer. Um, so that's why it stuck with me. It stuck with me in challenging myself to be able to articulate, like make the connection between, whatever, special sector it's in. It just this happens to be military versus civilian. It could be anything. It could be basketball versus baseball, or however you want to translate it. Just being able to make that connection, because it's on you. Like, your life, your quality of your decisions, it's all based on that.
Kind of going back to the military aspect, I feel like there's a lot of underemployment for folks that are in the military when they leave the military.
Mhm.
I think the skills that they acquire in the military are very transferable to corporate America. There might be some gaps, in the knowledge, kind of that you just alluded to with,
Yep.
the trade business itself, but a lot of the basic and the core fundamentals are not too dissimilar. And I think if you take that to a larger degree, I think a lot of careers that we have are transferable to different industries.
Yep.
But sometimes when we're in the industry, we think, oh, we don't want outsiders to come in. I sometimes think it's beneficial to have that fresh idea, that person with an outside perspective,
Yeah.
to come in. So, you know, I don't know if you have any hard evidence or anything like that, but kind of just looking anecdotally, are there any gaps in the military in terms of preparing people for life outside of
Absolutely.
being a soldier? I
I
mean,
can just tell you off the top of my head.
what could we do to make that transition into the corporate world or civilian life more
So
seamless?
So the value based, a lot of companies do value based interviews, and most veterans are going to have those values, right? You come in, the army values are beaten into you, not literally, but you learn the army values. So that was one of the things that attracted me to the company was the values, and then actually coming in seeing folks living the values. So you have that. That is like that's just it's now who you are for the most part. Uh, and one of the gaps that I noticed was the interest or the networking piece. You got to
Mhm.
be interested in the networking piece. You have to talk to people. And I was very fortunate that Justin, he's my first boss coming in, and he forced me to get out there and talk to folks.
Yeah.
So this was probably during one of those forced conversations, and I say forced in quotes because he just really encouraged me to go out and speak with everyone. And I hadn't taken the time to be able to articulate and translate the things that I have done and what I can do in a way that this civilian person who has no military background whatsoever is going to totally go over their head the same way that their experiences at the time would go over my head, you know? But after you spend a little time there and then you become the person who can do all the things that they can do, then it's like, well, I can do what you can do, but you can't do what I've done. So that's really neat. And in the military, they don't, that networking piece isn't encouraged. Although I have heard that if you want to be a general, you need to know a general.
Mm,
All right. I was just a junior officer, never got to the field grade ranks. And that's only something that, I've heard. But that just goes to show like, it's not who you know necessarily. It's going to be who knows you.
yeah.
And go ahead.
No, go ahead. I've got another follow-up point to, kind of expand on that, but
So that's
that
one
thought.
of the gaps that in my early, in my military career, 12 years, it wasn't, everything was kind of mapped out for you. You didn't have to, I guess you weren't encouraged to explore, but as toward, I would say the second half of my career, I realized, and this is after doing some things where that required me to seek out an exception to policy for some assignments that I wanted. And, it isn't just the end of the story if you're told no, right? There might be a window open, might be another way to go about getting that yes. And I think part of that was probably my deployment as well. When you're downrange and you're in a foreign land and you have to figure out how things are happening on the ground, you come to learn like, hey, everyone's just human here. If I can just get a hold of that person's ears and have a conversation with them, maybe I can sway this in a different direction.
I wanna commend you for a moment because I remember our first interaction, when you joined our team.
Hmm.
And I think it's great what Justin said to you. Go out and meet people because I say the same thing. Like go out, be proactive, introduce yourself. So just to kind of give you all listening the lay of the land, generally when people joined our team or our organization, the hiring manager or the leader in that group would kind of shuttle the person around that first morning and say, "Hey, here's Joe Smith. They're going to be reporting to me on this team. Just want to introduce you." And then, maybe you exchange some pleasantries. When DeRae joined the organization, I don't even know if we had gotten an email yet that he had joined the organization, but he goes person to person by himself, introducing himself like, "Hey, my name's DeRae. What's your name? I just joined the team. Uh, oh shoot, you're Golden Gloves champ. Hey, what's that seek discomfort thing on your desk? Oh, have you ever skydived? Oh,
Yeah,
okay. I mean,
basically.
I mean, I will give you kudos for that, because to me that left an impression. There were a lot of folks, that would come around. You would hear their names, then you'd have to go back and like look at the email, when you followed
Mhm.
up in a conversation, or it'd take a few days for you to actually remember. But I remember everyone that I sat around with, in my little pod or whatever you want to call it. Everyone was, kind of taken aback by that. So kudos to that. But one of the reasons why I want to say why that's important is for those of you that are looking for careers, what D-Ray said about networking is incredibly important. there's data out there. This is from a career coach that I spoke with in early 2021, saying that 80% of careers or jobs are found based on who you know. 80% of jobs that are being hired are not either posted or they're hired by, a mutual connection. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day who's currently looking for work, and I had introduced him to someone in the legal field, and I was like, "Hey, you should reach out to her, have a conversation." And he kind of somewhat feels nervous, I think, reaching out to people because
Mhm.
his background that's not common. And called me the other night, like beaming, like, "Oh my gosh, because of this conversation, it opened the door here, it opened the door
Yeah.
here." And I was like, "Yeah, this is what I've been telling you for a year and a half.
Yeah.
You gotta go out there and um, put yourself out there. I mean, what's the worst that happens? Someone says no, cool, move on."
Yeah. Don't self-select out. We don't do that here. We don't self-select out. Someone's gonna have to tell you no, or someone's gonna have to show you why you can't do whatever that it is that you wanna do.
Yeah,
I was gonna say it's not who you know, it's who knows you.
yeah.
And then there was a man, you said something. Um
Play back the tape.
and I was just thinking about that. The friend, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully it'll come back to me. Um, Getting out there, networking,
Yeah,
yes, absolutely. You never know where it's gonna lead you.
and
And it doesn't.
it's not just like there doesn't need to be some sort of because that same conversation with a friend that is that I introduced to someone in the legal space.
Got it.
Yeah, that same conversation, I told him, like, "This is why it's important to go out and network," and he told me that sometimes he feels out of place going to
Yeah.
networking. You gotta lean into that,
Or you that's a good, like, you could use that,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know what, I feel really out of place here. That's my opener.
I
That's my opener.
yeah, I told him, because he's trying to go from journalism to communications,
Uh-huh.
and I told him to go to, like, a few journalism-ish, comms-ish happy hours, and he's like, "What am I
This
supposed to
friend
do?"
sounds very, very similar to a friend that I know.
It might be that person that you maybe see at the spa sometimes. Uh But he told me, like, "What am I supposed to do? Like, talk comms to these people?" I'm like, "No." I was like, "Just have conversations with
Yeah,
people, like, find out what makes them tick." I'm like, you know, if there's someone there that likes the NBA,
yeah,
talk to the NBA. And he's like, actually, I did have a conversation with this guy that was at this last happy hour for about 40 minutes about the NBA." And I'm like, "And I'll tell you what, he's gonna remember you over every single person that he spoke with."
yeah.
It's because if you can relate to someone on a human level or find a common interest with them,
Mhm.
on something they like to do or a shared experience, I'm gonna remember that person.
Yep, gonna be memorable. Um, and also, that person does a really good job of not just being interesting, but being interested.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, right?
100%.
So, that's super communicator territory. Okay, I remember what I was gonna say.
We rolled back the footage. He saw the instant replay. He's got it.
In my head, I did. You you know what you can do, right? But how do you get there? You got to do the work. You know, like, it's kind of reflective work to know what you can do, because when you're out networking, you're having conversations. This is why this idea came up. Then you're going to be asked, well, what do you want to do? And why are those two questions stumping people? You know, like, it wasn't a trick question. It wasn't a trick question. What do you want to do? But when you've done the reflective work and you've considered, what you can do, you know what you can do, then you start moving on to, like, well, what do you want to do? Because you see the gaps, you see the things that are
Yeah.
that you're interested in now.
See, that question's hard, and here's why. I think there's some of us that wanna do multiple things,
Okay.
right? Like, there are multiple things that pique our interest.
Uh-huh.
It's okay to not know
Yeah.
what exactly you want to do. It's okay to move around and try new things.
Mhm.
You went from credit to, government relations. It's okay to have multiple interests and
Just
have a wide vision of things that you want to do. I mean, but as long, I think you have to fulfill those interests. It's we can't just be one track minded people, I mean, throughout our entire lives, we're told to grow and experience new things, but, and when it's in your career and you're pigeonholing yourself, like,
Yes.
is that a good thing?
Okay, let's go. Let's go here. Uh, it's not a great question, quite honestly, right? It's very
No.
broad, but the onus is on you to be able to answer it. So here's what you do when someone asks you, "What do you want to do?" Immediately tell yourself, ask yourself, "What do I want to do next?" Because that's typically the context, right? And I'm speaking about like at work, where your line manager or someone an advocate that you've befriended in the organization asks you, "Well, what do you want to do?" And then you just say, "Okay, well, what do I want to do next?" Right? It's like you're owning your life. So you've looked around, you've taken a lay of the land, whether it be in your industry or your company, and you've thought about, two or three things that you'd be interested in doing. There you go. Right? And that should be your answer. And that's what you're going to build off of, build out of. It could be a hard pivot, but maybe you're having a conversation with the wrong person.
Yeah, I also think it's, depending on where you are in your career, important to answer, like, I wanna lead a team. I want to"
Well, I
uh,
think that should be at some point the answer.
yeah,
Right? That's necessary. You
yeah,
gotta have a team at some point,
yeah,
especially if you've never led
right.
people.
And if you haven't led people in a business sense, I think there are other ways that you can get that leadership experience, whether
Yep,
it's serving on a board,
yep,
um,
BRG or
leading a
ERG.
board. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways that you can, fill in those gaps. Um, but yeah, I mean, you just mentioned BRG, business resource groups. Like, I led a business resource group for 2 years. I don't even have that on my resume because I forgot about it, So
Look at
that's
that. Look
circling
at
back to what I said earlier about document these
that.
things down.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me. I'm gonna go update that here in a moment.
So we're talking about sharing Kosh Coffee resume,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and um, and our hobbies. Right, hobbies are a really good place. And speaking of hobbies, I like to ride motorcycles, and it bothers me when people that I have conversations about motorcycles with, and I ask them, "Do they ride?" They say, "No, my wife won't let me."
I think sometimes that's an excuse.
It's not an excuse.
These are people that used to ride that
No, they never rode, and that's their excuse. It's
yeah,
it's a terrible excuse.
yeah,
I'd rather them say they're just too afraid, or whether it's for their children, their family, they don't feel responsible. Don't use your wife as an excuse. I don't even care if she gave you permission to use her as an excuse. Just take ownership of it.
yeah.
Extreme ownership. It's no different than in the military. If we got a mission, or if you're a leader in an organization and you have, some top down guidance, you own it. It's not, hey, they're telling me I have to do this. It's, we're doing this. It's what we're doing. Uh, so anyway, that was just a little side chat
I have a
about
lot of those today.
one of the ththings that bothers me when someone comes in and gives me some silly excuse as to why they can't do something that they want to do. Just say, I'm not interested. That's fine too.
Yeah, I think you gotta expand your mind, you gotta have new experiences, try new things, even if, lean into that fear. We have podcast episode, "Don't let fear, have a vote, don't let
Mhm.
fear get a
That's
vote."
right.
Um, you miss out on good things. Not saying you have to be reckless or anything like that, but, like, understand the risk, understand the caution, make an informed decision. And if you just don't wanna do it, don't do it. Like,
Hey,
you don't need a reason to put the blame on someone else, it doesn't make sense. But, one of the last things, DeRay, that I think we wanna touch on is, for this finding your voice, and your life depending on articulating your abilities, is I think in order to improve your mind and to and improve your understanding of the world.
mhm.
um I think there's two approaches that you can take. One, I think you can go live it and experience it yourself. If
You
you have
should
the
do that.
means, you should travel, explore, take a sabbatical tour around Africa. DeRay, you should do that. um
Coming soon.
and then Read extensively. That's something that you had put in this newsletter.
Yes.
You had written down, expose yourself to well-written content and diverse writing styles, analyze how authors effectively and thoughtfully communicate their ideas. And I think this is really important, not only just for self growth, but also for what's going on in the world right now. Right? I've led a lot of media trainings, and in the past, I say generally the reporter's job is to report the news. But I think there are a lot of biases that are coming into play now, especially for more hot button issues like world politics, elections, military issues. And um, I tell this to everybody like, yes, there are books that you can read, but when you're actually reading the news, you have to read from multiple sources, right?
Yep.
You can't just watch MSNBC. You can't just watch Fox News, watch both. If you're cynical like me, you watch it on election night. If the Democrats are doing well, you watch Fox News and you watch that meltdown. And if the Republicans are doing well, you turn on CNBC or CNN and you watch them meltdown. And it's just fun to do that. But I think it's important to know that the truth is probably somewhere in the middle in
Yep.
a lot of these, and it's really important to understand why people think what they do. Um, you know, I think it can help shape your decision making and allow for more empathy and how people approach the world. Um, yeah, I think reading from multiple sources is so important.
Well, it just gives you a more clear reality. When you're speaking to the news, if you watch it, I'm looking at my links, every day. I'm AP News, Reuters, NPR,
Reuters.
Reuters,
Reuters?
Reuters,
Reuters?
tomato, tomato,
No.
BBC, uh, Wall Street Journal,
Yeah.
New York Times. Like, you know, there you go. Those are your news sources if that's what you're into. And with recent events, what's going on in the Middle East. I got two books about it. On either side. So it's
Yeah.
I'm going to read the case for Israel. I'm going to read the 100 Years War on Palestine. Yeah, I need to know. I need to know what's going on. You know
Man,
what's going on. Who's got something to say about it? Who's got thoughts, feelings, ideas around something? And then I may not even reach a conclusion.
it's okay. You don't
That
have
is
to.
okay. Yep.
You can also
I don't
empathize
have a
with both
position
sides,
here. Yep.
you know?
Yep.
Um, that kinda reminds me of something that I wish I had done a better job of, keeping up with. So, in college, I was international relations political science major, and I took one of my most favorite classes that I took was, I think it was a 400 level class. I was maybe a junior at the time,
Mhm.
and there were a lot of actual grad students in there, taking this course. But it was like War and Peace in the Middle East.
Okay.
And the professor had actually just been given like a Fulbright grant, I guess, to teach abroad or something like that, or do studies abroad. I don't remember, but that class to me was so fascinating. We mostly studied Israel-Palestine, and, what had gone on, throughout the history, and
Mhm.
there were so many incredible books from both sides
Yeah.
that I had, and when I was moving, this is probably 2018, maybe, from one apartment to another, I was moving so quickly, and I actually wasn't even in the country when I was moving. Um, I had someone else move for me, and so I missed a few boxes in, like, a storage unit that had some books, and all of those books were in there,
Mm.
and it bothers me, because I also lost out on some other, like, personal items that were in there, like my yearbooks,
Yeah.
from high school, from college, but I remember specifically those books were in there, and I wish I could just pick them up right now and, like, read through them, because they had notes, they were so incredibly important, to provide more context and understanding. Like, I think I'm pretty informed on what's going on, but, just to be able to, like, look at your notes, I wish I had that, because I didn't have, like, now I have, like, a hard drive with all of our Cautious Coffee episodes and things like that, that I can go
Yeah.
back and, like, watch, listen, any research that we did beforehand, I've got those in a folder. But, you know, 15, 16, 17 years ago in college, never even thought to do something like that. And that's kind of one of the things that I wish I could go back and, because like you said, reading is so important, and understanding our history and where we've come from helps shape us to where we're going. You know, I'm not directly going to impact what's going on, obviously, in the Middle East, but, if I can have a conversation with someone to explain to them what's actually going on,
Yep, it's
and the history behind it,
your sphere of
yeah,
influence, right? It's not going to make this monumental impact necessarily. It's just it's a huge problem, whatever the problem is, but it's more being able to speak to the folks in your sphere, and that's going to determine your life. That's what your life
yeah,
depends on, is being able to speak to the people in your sphere, influence them, impact them, maybe even persuade them from time to time, because you might have read something and you know better.
yeah, and I think it's good to be able to trust people that you can go to and say, "Hey, what do you think about this situation?" People that that are going to, like, shoot you straight,
Mhm.
that you trust that they're informed. Um, I've got a good friend who I stress the reading multiple sources, ahead of the 2020 election, and every time he's got a question on something, he'll come to me and say, "Hey, what do you think of this situation?" And after our last Cautious Coffee newsletter, Brewed Insights that I wrote on Super Tuesday, which is coming up.
Mhm.
Actually, by the time you're listening to this, Super Tuesday probably happened yesterday. um, but he was like, I really enjoyed that read, that identified with a lot of that. And he's like, is there any like place that you can go to really feel and understand like the specific candidates and what issues they actually care about, like from an unbiased source? I was like, that's a great question. Like if I were to go search, Jane Doe or John Doe, and I might not have like a full website where I can read all of the issues and what they actually say about it, what they actually vote on. And, I think that is problematic where we have to
Do a lot of
hear,
homework.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I threw out a website that I've been using since seventh or eighth grade where you can go answer some like questions, like
Mhm.
policy oriented questions.
Okay.
Then it identifies you with candidates, but it's not good for like local candidates or anything like that. But
Yeah.
the ultimate advice I gave was read the editorials from the your local newspaper.
Mhm.
Maybe who they endorse. A lot of them will do video interviews. Watch those interviews with those candidates, and then make your decision from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the lottery piece. Yeah, a lot less work.
It's a lot less radical now that I think about it.
Well, the thing is, the candidates have always been wild,
What?
and
Not in this country.
all right, everywhere, right? Historically, uh, you know, just take it with a cup full of salt, I guess.
I mean, you're 38. Why
39
not,
tomorrow.
why not, well, 2 days ago when you listen to this episode. Also shout out Hattie Horn. Her birthday is the same day as yours.
That's right, birthday twin.
Um, I mean, you're 38 going on 39. Why
Yep,
not? I'm gonna
someday.
vote. I'm gonna vote for you for president this year. Is that cool? A write-in name.
Right in. I'm not mad at it. 2 votes. 2 votes. I need to get all the energy out of me first before I'm ready to do that.
Okay. All right.
And I will have refined and found my voice. Yeah.
That's a nice way to circle back and bring us to the
Yep. I'll be a black
wrap the
belt.
conversation.
Be a
Okay.
black belt there. And I don't really want to do it, but that's not why I'd be doing it. I'd be doing it because somebody has to. Somebody has to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it. All right. So if you enjoyed this episode, if you like the newsletters, let us know. Hit us up with feedback. You can email us, contact at Cautious Coffee. LinkedIn's probably the best platform to get a hold of us. And also, I want to stress this. DeRae, this may be just a little pet peeve.
Okay.
I love it when people like text us feedback, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, I love this episode. I really identified with this. I'm like, awesome. Can you share that on like LinkedIn? Like, RB, you do a great job. Justin, thank you so much for sharing your feedback too a few weeks ago. But like it helps us out so much more if you could share that on LinkedIn. Like it does so much for the algorithm. More people see it. So if while I love the text messages, if you can
Yep.
also post that on LinkedIn, that'd be awesome. Just a little rant.
I like it. I like it.
All right. Any parting words, DeRae?
Parting words. You know, I thought about this the other day. Like, we should do this. Like, maybe where we take turns asking each other a profound question. You know,
That's actually not a bad idea. I've got a book behind me.
and maybe next time.
Well,
Well, I was gonna go back to the folks that leave their feedback. We'd love to have someone on.
yeah, or a guest writer too.
Yeah. Someone that leaves some feedback or someone that wants to join us on the podcast while we go through one of these episodes. You'll have the newsletter. We probably would have already written about it. You know exactly what we're going to chat about and
Exactly.
get some dialogue going.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So if you made it this far into the episode, let us know. We don't care what credentials. We don't care if you've never done a podcast before. We just want to have conversations. That's what we're gonna do at the end of the day. But DeRae, behind me, actually, I've got a book that my mom gave me for Christmas. It's a book of writing prompts.
All right.
So maybe in a future episode, we just pick, like, you just tell me when to stop. I'll point at a writing prompt, and it's one of those like profound questions.
Okay.
Maybe that's something we do to close the episode. New segment or something.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll add it as a newsletter component as well. But
Yeah.
anyways,
It would be a highlight of those.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
It's a work in progress. But DeRae, it's been fun. I've enjoyed it.
Until next time.
See ya.